deep into that darkness peering. Long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting. I never knew Edgar Allan Poe wrote code. Ah, it's good to be back in the void. So, today we are going to attempt to continue where we left off with this project. I don't know, it's been a good solid month now since we've really done any work on it. But we really only have the one major issue to solve. And then the rest is just, you know, getting that part to work with all the other parts that we needed to work with. Because as you recall... Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. Alright. We can open a file. When we create a new file, though, all it'll do is actually generate the text file, but we don't have a way to create that first record that makes the file truly compatible with the system we've been working with here. That first record is the headers for the rest of the file. These files are going to work like spreadsheets where, you know, there's columns. Each column has a header, and we can expect the same sort of data in each of those columns. Each row is a new record, and we can expect the same information pattern from each one. Y'all are familiar with how spreadsheets work, right? Yeah, and that's basically what we're making here. Ta-da! When we add records, update records, those should do the same sort of thing, where they'll pop up a window pre-populated with the information from that record, or from a chosen record, if we're choosing to update a record, or blank with just labels consisting of our same headers here, if we're adding a new record to an existing file. And the way we want to do that is we're going to have a frame object. that encompasses everything else. And inside, on a loop, for some number of x, label text box, place, at some x chord, some y chord, plus, like, 60, but we're going to have to keep adding it to that y coordinate so that they keep, filling in a downward direction. We're going to have to grab x before we create the object. And we're going to need an answer for what our labels are going to be before we start creating the objects. And whether or not our text boxes need to have that information before they start creating the objects. So that gives us our arguments. These two would obviously be lists. This would just be some number, probably the length of the labels. If if we don't declare one, we would just make it the length of labels. Whatever list of headers we feed to this object. We want the widget to default to that being the length of our loop. So it'll loop through all of those labels. If we're not passing it any labels, we're going to need a value for x. So we'll probably want to set up some kind of check for that to make sure that in our code we're not trying to call this thing without either having an x value, basically some number to determine the number of records, or a list whose length we can check for that number. Text, we can make that just some optional thing. If there's any length to the text list that we give it. Otherwise, if there isn't any length to it, we can ignore that one. So what am I talking about here? Well, you remember how we created this main window frame and then we added all of these elements to it, but we did them manually one after another, after another, after another? We are working in code. We're able to set this up so that it does something like this. And basically what this is saying is, for the length of our headers record, You know, print a label, print a label, print a label, print a label. For each of those elements, you know, give us proper spacing so that they're all readable. And that's the first step towards answering this problem here of being able to create a header record. Because in order to create a header record, we need to ask the user how many headers there will be, and then present them with this this widget that has that many data entry points, so that they can fill in what the headers are going to be. Otherwise, we could loop through a bunch of prompts and ask them that way. But I feel like this is a more elegant solution. Gives them a chance to, you know, before they finally submit their answer as far as what they want the headers to be. It gives them a chance to look over the full, you know, the full scope of that header record and submit it all at once. Rather than, you know, they type through 3 or 4 headers and then on the next one they screw up or realize that they screwed up 2 headers back, and like now they have to redo the whole thing. So this is what we're going to attempt to make. Now, for now, we'll assume to have a value for x for testing purposes. We can set up a file dialog or a message box to get that information from the user and set that up as an you know, as a middle step between this widget popping up and having hit this button. Because once they hit this button, I want it to pop up that next thing where it's like, okay, how many headers are we going to have? How many headings do we need? How many columns, essentially, will our file have? For testing purposes, we're just going to assume 5, and we're going to go from there. So we're going to skip over the asking how many. Just go straight to 5. We won't really have to test the these two till we get to adding and updating records. Oh, excuse me. But that'll be part of the next thing. So, and that's basically what's going on here with all this. Okay. Oofta. I am already yawning a little too much. Alright, and here we have that pass call where we'll want to insert our call to opening up a file, or to asking for the headers for the file. We don't have anything for the file delete, don't have anything for the edit. Exit, we have that figured out pretty easily. Don't mind me, I'm just putting extra white space between my functions. Okay. So this new widget will go after this one. And again, we're going to extend the frame widget. And we're just going to add that to a top level window. But all of our code's going inside of the frame. So, as you recall, the way we do that, we give it a name, extend the frame, define the initialization function, and then with that, we can set up our stuff. So, what do we want to call this? Well, if we do it right, we only have to make one of these as the blueprint. And then it's always going to be the records window, right? Always pass self as the first argument. Oh. I have a furry visitor. But I think she may want to actually head back upstairs, and I think the door's closed on her. Oh, let's see here. Now here we're going to declare our default headers. And for testing purposes, since we're going to have a length of 5, we just need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for our text, we're going to do a default of one, two, three, four, 5. So that should be enough to get us started with this. Now, Here's where we're going to use X as our... There we go. As our variable for determining the length. Excuse me. And later, we'll change this to length of labels. Although we could just do that now, couldn't we? I'm not sure that that'll work, though, because technically labels is being declared while on the same line. Following? So I might need to switch that up. Or I could just do... that. Because at this point, labels is already passed in. It's part of the class. It's part of the function. It's within the scope. Because either it will be this default, or it'll be whatever our user or future coder has decided to put in, or what we put in later. And you know what? I think I like that better. The only problem is it will make it a little bit interesting. That intermediate step between hitting this button and actually making the file, and having this window pop up where it has us put in the headers. That little message box thing that's going to come up how many columns. We're going to have to construct a list instead of just passing the number. But construct a list consisting of that many elements, which really isn't that hard, because we would just loop through whatever number we're given and just append that many times to an empty list. And we would just append, data 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but set it up so it's data value of some variable until we've reached the count that was entered by the user. So we have a way to do that. We have ways for that. Oh, I'm getting the sad, pathetic, can you help me stare from the kitty cat. She needs me to go let her upstairs. I will be right back. I'm back. Yeah, just had to let the cat upstairs. Alright, so we could probably default this to a blank. And then do a check here. And actually, let's do this. Oh no, we can't do that because if we do that, it'll check every time we go through and it'll be like, nope. So we'll have to do this. There we go. Whoop. There. So what are we doing here? We're checking if there's any length to our text list because this is optional. If the user of this function has not passed in a list, if we decided to make a record window without passing in some kind of list containing the default information, this is where the record information itself would go. Our Tom, Gray, sorta, that kind of information. If we don't have that to pass into text, it's not going to break. It's just going to make a list for us for each of the items with no content, just empty content. So we'll have blank text boxes instead of pre-filled ones. But this gives us the option of passing into our record window the information so that when we call this to update a record, it'll already have pre-filled in Tom, Gray, sorta, and then we just change the information as we need to without having to rewrite all of the information. Because when we submit the information from this window, it will rewrite all of the information, but it's going to use the data that's in the text boxes. So we want to pre-fill the text boxes as much as we possibly can, when we possibly can, which is why we're doing this. If the list is empty, if the program hasn't passed it anything here, it creates an empty list for us with the correct number of elements. Now, the assumption here will be before hitting the submit button on this, the data entry all gets changed to whatever it needs to be. It might not get changed because we might just want an empty cell with no data in it, in which case, this is that default of empty, nothing, doesn't have anything in it. I hope some of that made sense. Oh, I suppose I gotta take this and put this back up here. Oh, sorry, I've just been so tired today. Did not sleep well last night. Okay, so taking our labels, which there should always be something. It's either going to default to this list of 5 data 1, data 2, data 3, data 4, data 5 labels, or we're going to pass it some kind of list. Potentially one constructed much like this, where it's just empty appends, where we just append an empty element to the list however many times we need it, and then we can use the length to set this value, which we're going to again use over here. And here. So we're using it in a couple places. I mean, if we wanted to, I suppose we could eliminate the need for X and just do that. And then we don't even need the we don't even need that control variable, because we're literally just using the length of labels. That's one less variable we have to worry about. It does look a little more wordy, but it still makes sense. Or at least, I hope it makes sense. Because again, what we're doing here, if not length of text, meaning if this is just an empty list, for every item in the range of 0 to the length of labels, which has a default of 5. Otherwise, it's whatever we've passed in as our headers, because we'll pass in the headers here. We pass in the actual record data here when we're calling this. So for the length of the headers, we append to text, again, assuming it's empty, just blank data for each one. And then, for I'm not really liking that. Let's go with header here. For each of the headers in the labels, because we're using that header record as our kind of our control, you know? Whatever its length is, whatever its data is, that's what we're basing the rest of our actions on. We want to create a text box. Well, first a label and then a text box. Now this is something we've done before, right? Of course. Right here. However, what we haven't done is create them as part of a list. And that's what we're going to do here, because we want to be able to iterate through them. So in order to do that, we're going to make them all a part of the same thing. So we are going to... What are we going to call this? We don't want to call this labels. You know what? Maybe we do. Maybe we do. We're going to change this to headers with an S. Because it makes more sense to call it headers, because that's what they are. Because we're passing in the headers, and we're passing in we should go with record here. There we go. Now it's more descriptive. And our variables actually more accurately reflect what data, what information we're working with here. Because those aren't just labels, they're the actual headers. We're passing in the actual headers. We're passing in the actual record data. We're counting the length of the headers record. And for each header in that headers record, we want a label and a text box. Oh, let's see. What are they calling the text boxes? Entry. Helps if I hit the tab and not the cap locks, huh? Let's throw S's on the end of those. All right. So, what exactly are we doing here? Previously, when we would create a label or an entry box, we would have to give it some kind of a name. And then we would call on the properties and functions by calling it by name. Here, those names are basically entries in a list. So instead of calling, label 1, label 2, label 3, it'll be, label 0 and whatever we need to put, or place. Place is the one we've been using, isn't it? We would have some X value and some Y value here, and that would actually put our label in place. Whoop, helps if I... Labels, there we go. So all of our items become a part of this list. We can iterate through them, and then we would actually just make this some code within another for loop after we've added all the labels and entries we need. So what do we need to pass to... Okay, we just need self and a text name. Okay, so we need well, we need the parent object that it's attached to. And then we need now we can actually clean this up a bit and just have it cycle through the headers themselves. And whichever header we're on, it'll stick that into our label text. For the placement, though, we're going to want to work with actual numbers there. So there, we'll use the length of headers. And then we'll make this times, I don't know, 30? I don't know if that's going to be tall enough, but we'll see what happens. Okay. So far, so good. I think. Now comes the interesting part. I want to try to test what we have made so far. But in order to do that, we've got to go up to here we go. We have to basically copy this. Come down here. Let's drop all that there. Now I'm putting all this at the end because we're going to remove this code or probably move it, more likely. Once we have once we figured out how to make it work. Shoot. What did I have there? Just some name, right? Create file. Yeah. Yeah, I just had some name there. Doesn't really matter what we call it, so. Okay. So we called. Yeah, I think we've done all the. We've called all the necessary arguments. So let's close this. Let's try running the module. Huh. Does not have our. Doesn't have our second window there. Which is kind of annoying. Alright, so what did I not do correctly? Is it because I tried calling it outside of this? It is. It's because I tried calling it outside of that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But here you can see it actually went into those lines of code. Only to find that it had no length. I'm not entirely sure how to interpret this, but because it should come up with 5. Because headers is right there. But here's where it broke down. Top level has no... Well, we're not calling the top level length. We're just We're just calling the normal. And it had no problem here. It's here that it runs into the problem. Which is another weird one. It's like, wait, what? No. Because, yeah, this is the line where it decides that the top level doesn't have access to this, but it used it right there in order to get into here. Otherwise, it would have passed over this. So I don't know, but it's right there. So I'm not sure what happened here. I'm not sure what happened. I mean, I guess we don't necessarily need numbers there. I mean, once again, we could just go with that, and it would probably still work. It didn't like that at all. um, Apparently, it thinks we're trying to concatenate uh, an int to a string. I don't know. Okay, but at least we know it's going into the proper frame for our window. I'm not sure if the problem is with our defaults or what. Maybe we need to pull those into here. Oh, yeah, it could just be that we're confusing it as to where to find this information. So that should clear up any ambiguity, hopefully. And now we're back to this again. 4 item in range. Top level has no Len. We're not calling top levels Len, we're just calling the regular Len. Alright, so for item in range, I probably don't need to be using self in all of these places, but I feel like the program is confused on some things. We're not trying to use top levels Len. We're trying to use the global built-in length function thing. Okay. Maybe it's because we are calling that in a weird spot? I don't know. We'll try calling it here. I don't know, maybe it's somehow out of scope of where it needs to be. That, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. But sure. I mean, I did call that record window, right? Yeah. Okay, so I shouldn't need this. I don't understand why it's not freaking out about this one, though. Because it's literally doing the exact same thing. This is a list. This is a list. Here we are passing those lists into the object's properties, making them a part of the object itself so that we can reference it. And here we are referencing those lists, but for some reason this works, this doesn't. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Also, it's creating two windows. What am I doing wrong here? Probably several things. Probably several things. Also, do you notice we're missing our regular Cruddy Buddy thing? It created this, though. Okay, I think I might have forgotten a few things here. Ah, okay. Yes. We are forgetting a couple of things. We're forgetting to call all of the things there. Okay. Maybe that'll fix some stuff. Master is not defined. What do you mean master is not defined? It's right there. Okay. Now we're getting something else. But we've moved on to something. Although we seem to have broken something else here. I don't know what's going on there. So, all right. First of all, let's just make sure We haven't broken anything too severely. Okay. Everything's back to normal. Alright. Now, looking at our records here. What is this saying? Thing is not a thing because I'm using it wrong. That makes sense. Where did I do that though? Right here. Yeah, no, we can just take that. Because we're using the actual data entry there. We don't need to try to call the data entry from the data entry. We're using the data we're already needing. Right there. So that should fix that. Did I uncomment that code? I did not. What I've done here is I've commented out the comment. That is a fully legal move, by the way. One to two positional arguments, 3 were given. No. Only 2 were given. 1, 2. Are you unable to count? Do I need to... Need to put the math in parentheses so you're not too confused there, interpreter? What are you talking about? 3 were given. 3 were not given. Let's try taking some of this self stuff off of here. Except for those. Hold on. Okay, self. Self. Do I have to size? Width. Width. Record window has no attribute for labels. It does so, I just forgot to take the thing. Off of that one. I love how it absolutely just collapses the thing we've done previously. And there again, it's 3 were given. We're passing X and Y. That looks like 2 arguments to me. 1, 2. Huh. Well, hello, the Knitting Link. Welcome to another fun-filled Python coding session. I'm currently fighting with my code because it can't count, but I can. For some reason, it's counting that as 3. But when I print the values of that, it's just 2. So I'm not sure what the heck is going on here. The only thing I can think of is that it is getting confused by the fact that our widgets are being stored in a list. So let's see if that does anything. No, see there again. Takes 1 to 2 positional arguments, but 3 were given. I'm only counting 2. counting two. You guys count two? Do y'all see a third one? Because I don't see a third one. Yeah, looks like two to me. So I'm not sure what its problem genuinely is here. I don't know. I don't know. So, how do we solve this? Since it doesn't want to work, and we don't seem to have a valid way of testing it. I mean, we can move forward and just assume it works. It's just not working for this particular implementation. But I really don't like assuming. I want to be able to test it and get a successful test before we proceed. Because that should work. Yeah? I mean... shouldn't it? I don't understand why it can't count properly the number of arguments I am passing to the place method of these widgets. Because I even printed the values out to make sure I'm not inadvertently passing it a list somehow. And no, it's passing, or the coordinates are exactly what I expect them to be. But it doesn't like them. Maybe... maybe it's trying to disguise a... out of bounds error or something. Okay, that still works. Now, when I go up there and uncomment, let's change the name of that so it's more readable. I know what I'll do. Let's take that out of there so it stops screwing up the window. And we have add isn't doing anything. So we'll throw it in there. That'll be our test button. Okay. I mean, we've literally duplicated the call for creating a new file, and that worked. That worked absolutely perfectly when we did it. We're literally just doing the same thing. Now when I go down to my windows here, new window. It's got all the stuff. It's got a function that runs when you click the button. That's right there. And pretty much the same thing happens here. Self master equals none because it's a new window. I am passing these two arguments, but that doesn't seem to be causing any issues that I know of. Let's see if that does anything different. Alright. Now when we hit this, it should pop up that new window. There again. It's trying to tell us more than 3 arguments, or more than 2 arguments have been given, and I'm clearly only seeing 2. I mean, it creates the window, it labels the window properly. It seems to be passing through ZXCH1 NCS. Hi, welcome to the chat. What'd you need help with? Like, I don't know how much help I'll be able to give you. I can't seem to figure out why my own code can't count the number of arguments that I'm passing to it. JavaScript series later, Ube? Absolutely. We're gonna get through the Python. We're gonna work on Pygame, which is a module that lets you make little mini games. Like retro style sort of games. But then I really do want to get into JavaScript. That's my preferred language, honestly, but it's a bit more complicated than Python. However, with JavaScript, you can make things that can run on pretty much any device that has a browser. And so we're going to be able to do some pretty interesting stuff. It's just, it has more complicated ways of doing it. So, but like there's going to be some very interesting things we could do there. You have to do train platforms? I'm not sure I understand that. As in, like, at a train station? Like for passenger trains? Or is this some module somebody created that I'm not familiar with? Because here in the States, I don't know if y'all are aware, but we don't really have a lot of trains that get us from place to place, especially where I'm at. Um, New York has a subway system. Chicago has a subway system. Like some of the major metropolitan areas have subways. I think Minneapolis might be the closest place to me that has a subway system, and even then, I don't believe it has a real big subway system. But where I'm at is in the middle of nowhere. Like, we barely have buses. All right, we have like a bus. You call them and you're like, "Hey, can I get a ride?" And they show up. It's more like a taxi service, but it's a bus. That's how primitive our transportation system is out here. If you don't have a car, if you don't have your own vehicle, you're not getting anywhere. Some days we don't have roads. We're expecting not to have roads beginning Thursday night because it will blizzard. Snow will cover everything, and we're not going to be able to find the roads for probably a few hours. So, yeah, we barely have roads. We do have indoor plumbing, and sometimes it works. But, train platforms, though, like, I'm not familiar with train platforms because, believe it or not, 40 years old, I've never really had to take the train. You know? I've never had to do trains. Or airplanes. I've never flown in an airplane either. Which is, probably crazy to some people. That a man could be 40 years old and have never flown in an airplane or anything. And it's not that I'm afraid of flying, it's just I've never had to. The opportunity just has never come up. I've never had to travel far enough that the method to get there that makes the most sense is to hop in an airplane and fly. Um, Most of the places that I would need to travel by airplane would be like vacation destinations and stuff. So obviously the tickets are, luxury pricing. So it's really not a thing I've ever had to worry about or do. Um, However, if you can identify like the steps that are taking place, and you can think of a, I believe flown is the correct word. Flew? Flown. Flew. Either one of those words work. But yeah, if you can identify the steps as they need to occur, you should be able to create anything in code, except for what I'm trying to create here. Because apparently, my Python interpreter has lost the ability to count. It seems to be thinking I'm trying to pass self or something into place, but I'm not. I'm only passing 2 arguments, but it seems to think that I'm trying to pass more. More than 2 positional arguments. Or at least that's the error that it's giving me. I'm feeling like that's not the proper error message, though, because it doesn't make sense. So I'm not sure how to go about fixing that. So let's see. If we start at the top, is it? Did I use a bad variable name here? Is that the problem? No, that should be fine. Like, I know that's not going to fix anything, what I just did there. Okay, we hit that, and... Okay, it's getting as far as giving us the window. Let's try moving that down there and see what it gives us. Okay, let's take a look here. They do appear to be label objects, don't they? So we're definitely getting label objects put in there. We're getting text entry objects. Hmm. So I'm stumped. uh, that doesn't happen terribly often either, where I'm stumped to this level. Let's try making these records or dictionaries. I mean, I doubt this is going to fix it, but maybe. Of course, then we have to rethink how we're doing this. Like, there is absolutely no reason that this should work when it didn't work before. But let's see. Worst that happens is we just broke it beyond repair. See, there again. That same useless bit of information. What are the three arguments? That's what I would like to know. Because I can name two of the arguments, but I can't tell you what the third argument is because I don't see the third argument. And it's calling the method. Seemingly the proper method of the object. And the only thing I can think of, but also I don't think it would produce this error message, is if somehow this isn't passing the actual object to the list or the dictionary, but passing a reference. But if that were the case, this method I'm calling here wouldn't be calling this method, because that's the widget method. So it's working. I just don't know where it's getting this extra argument from. Did I miss a comma somewhere? Or insert a comma that doesn't belong somewhere? Wonder if we try using a different content manager method. I mean, probably won't make a difference. It'll probably still try to claim that we're passing it arguments we don't need. Why? Why does that work? Somebody tell me. Why does that work and the other things don't work? Alright, you know what? I'm done. I'm done for the day. I throw my hands up in disgust at the world because the whole thing makes no sense at all. And, like, I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to be teaching you guys stuff, but I don't understand it myself. I don't know why that worked. I don't know why place wasn't working, but pack is. I don't get it. I am confused. I am probably more confused about this than I've been about anything I have ever been confronted with in Python ever before. And I've been working in Python for ages. I don't know why that works, and the other way doesn't work. I don't know. I can't tell you. What did I change? Okay, so the widgets in Python, in the tkinter module, they come with a couple different, I guess, content managers. Basically, when you go to place the widget within another widget, there's a function that tells the nesting widget how much space to take up, where to take up that space, how much space to leave for everything else. I was trying to use the widget content manager that allowed us to give our widgets X and Y coordinates. And I was passing them X and Y coordinates. But for whatever reason, the X and Y coordinates that I was passing to it, instead of reading that as being 2 arguments, it was reading that as 3 or more. Which is really dumb because the place content manager function can actually take up to 4 arguments, because you can have an X and a Y, on the Cartesian plane, you're up and down, left and right. But then you can also have a height and width. I was only passing it in X and Y. You don't need to pass it a height and width. It'll just default to the default. But for whatever reason, only passing it X and Y, it was saying that I was passing it a 3rd argument, and I couldn't figure out what that 3rd argument is. Because I wasn't giving it the 3rd argument. There was no 3rd argument. There was only X and Y. That's 2. 2 arguments. Well, when I change it to pack, which basically is just, hey, slap this in there. I don't care where you put it. I don't care how you arrange them. Just, stuff them in there. For some reason that works. I don't know. I can't figure it out. I can't figure out why that works, but it works. It works, and that's all that matters at this point now. I am kind of mad that worked, because it shouldn't work. There's no freaking reason at all as to why that worked and the other way didn't work. So we're going to go with we're done, because it works. Since we don't need length, we don't need the integers anymore. Also, we don't need that anymore. Don't need to know why. Technically, you should understand how your code works. Like, you just should. But we don't. No, now I'm cleaning up what's not broken. I think. I honestly have no idea at this point. I'm going to attempt this and hope I don't break a bunch more stuff. Because the part that I was working on, I mean, it seems to work now. But because of the way it works, I don't need it as a second loop. I can just run it as part of this loop, because we're just calling basically the same way we were doing before. Now, if it decides not to work, I'm going to be super annoyed. Okay, still works. Good. Still works. Shouldn't work. Don't know why this works and the other way didn't. I mean, technically both ways should work. I don't know why it chose this as the way that has to work, when the other way should have worked just fine. We're not really going to have a whole lot of control over our layout, but we don't really need a lot of control over our layout here. All we need to do is add a button here, and then we should be able to control the number of data entry fields by just controlling the length of the list we pass to our object. So yeah, this window that we have created with the labels, the text boxes, this is the first step to making the add new record and updating the old record uh, functionality to our little app. Plus, when we create a new file, the very first thing we need to do is we need to be able to create a headers for that file. Same way we did when we made this for text line. Is the window size static? Yes, the window size is static. Uh, Mainly because I didn't want to mess with it. We'll mess with the dimensions later. But I've been making all of my windows so far so that they're unadjustable. But for that, real easy code there. We're setting a min and max that are exactly the same. And we're making them the exact same dimensions that the window spawns in. Let's see, we could probably make it not so wide, right? So, I don't know, what do we got here? We could probably make that, now I'm gonna break it. Watch this. This will somehow break it. Why? I don't know. Fahrenheit Celsius converter? Oh, that'd be too easy. Hey, there we go. Now, obviously, we don't want a max size when our records start getting longer than 7 data entry points. Because we're going to need this to get bigger. Plus, we need to add a button to submit the record. So, however, the functionality of that button is going to have to change depending upon what we're using our record window for. Whoop, what happened? I lost everything. Where'd everything go? There we go. Apparently when I wave things around, it makes my entire desktop collapse on itself. I don't understand that. But that's what happens. All right. So, we should also probably figure out if we can make these buttons disable themselves while we have this window open, because we don't want 2 record windows open. Oh, well, thanks for joining me for the very frustrating but eventually successful coding session. Feel free to tune in tomorrow. We're playing more Metroid, and then Friday, back to The Legend of Zelda for some more Korok hunting. Yeah. And then Saturday, Attack of the Giant Leeches at midnight. Well, midnight my time. It's like 7 a.m. where you guys are at. 6 or 7, something like that. I'm actually about to sign off here because, I mean, success after frustration, usually that's a good sign to call it for the day. Yeah, you guys have a great day. We'll see you next time. And for the rest of you watching, yeah, I am going to call it a day there because That was an incredibly frustrating problem, made all the more frustrating by the fact that the content manager just didn't seem to want to function for us properly. I still don't know why it wasn't. I'm gonna have to look into that. Um, it works now though, and from here we should be able to add a few things. Like, okay, when we go to add record, we should be able to populate these now with whatever the actual headers are when we open a file. Because we'll have the file open, we'll have, for example, these headers here. When we hit this button, we should be able to substitute our list here with those headers. So that'll at least give us the labels we need and control the length and number of data entry points. We'll still have to make a submit button so that when we enter the information that we enter in, that information becomes a record that gets added. But that should be something we can do just by calling our Cruddy Buddy objects create record function. And we just pass it in a list from all the values that have been entered into those text boxes. Update record, same thing, except we'll want to ask which record. So, we'll have to get a number from the user. Might try to make it populate a drop-down list that just, ends at however many records there are. That way, like, the user literally just has to select the record, the number of the record, and they can't select one that doesn't exist. And then it'll bring up that same window, but it'll be populated with our headers as well as the data from the record that's been selected. And then they can just change the information they need, hit submit, it'll rewrite that record to our file using the standard Cruddy Buddy object methods that we wrote previously. And then delete record will have a similar sort of drop down that the update record has. We'll still want it to pull up that record window, but instead of having the information there to be changed, all of them should be like kind of grayed out, just like displaying the information, not making it so you can change it, and then confirming that that's the record you want to get rid of. And then, yeah, our create new file, when we hit that button in the new window, it should immediately launch into creating that first record that is our headers. So these are just, some of the problems we need to solve, but they're small problems that we need to solve with what should be hopefully surprisingly simple solutions. We managed to succeed in what we set out to do today, and we even managed to do it in the time frame that I was hoping to do it in. It's just that package manager did get frustrating, and that's just part of coding. Like, you're gonna run into weird stuff like that no matter what language you're in. I'm probably gonna want to Google why that wasn't working, see if I can find some kind of answer. But I'm not going to worry too much about it because we did finally figure it out. And we do have our little custom-made widget working now. Because that's what this is. This is now a custom widget. This is that record window. That's our custom widget. we can pass it any list of headings. We can pass it any list of record data, and it should auto-populate. Um, well, it's not going to auto-populate the record data. We haven't implemented that yet. But the headers, though, do. I'm pretty sure for the entry, it's just a matter of setting the, like, text equals whatever field that is on the headers. However, we may have to change how we do that, because here, as you can see, we're using header. And this is not a dictionary. So, we're going to probably have to make some changes to that. Nothing that we haven't seen before, nothing that should break it, theoretically. But we're making slow progress, we're getting there. It's just a matter of finishing up these few tasks and making them actually work. So yeah. Right now, this works for what we need in order to display a window that will hopefully at some point display record information along with headers. And we should be able to use that in various other places in our code. And because of the way that we're designing it, it will have multiple uses. And it should meet the needs of all of those uses. Just depending upon how we need to use it. So, a little more thought into how we can, better design this now that we've got it working. Not much else needs to be done, thankfully. Yeah. Thank you all very much for joining me. We're getting back to scheduled live streams. They're still going to be about this time of day. Excuse me. But Mondays and Thursdays are going to be the new game that we're playing. Currently, Metroid, where we're going to work our way through that franchise. Fridays, we're going to play. Either we're going to be cleaning up and finishing up content from a game that we've finished, technically, but just want to be able to say we've done 100% on it. And right now, that's Breath of the Wild. We're doing some Korok seed hunting. When we don't have anything to do in a previous game that we're just trying to finish up, all the side stuff and extra content, I plan to do sort of a random from my library kind of a pick. I've got a lot of very interesting games that I have not had a chance to get to, so a lot of these are going to be absolutely blind. I've never played them. I've bought them. They're in my library, but I don't know what I'm doing with them. Like, they're just there. They've been collecting dust for ages. And so that'll be Friday content. Fridays are going to be kind of fun, little just random days after a while here. But for now, we're still making our way through the Great Korok Seed Hunt in Breath of the Wild. Um, our main playthrough, like I said, right now is Metroid. We're currently on the very first one. I don't foresee us going in exactly, specifically, the correct order. And by correct, very serious emphasis on the quotations around that word. There is a little dispute as to where Prime fits into the series. You know, some say it's a retelling of the events of the first one. Some say it just kind of fits between, certain ones. Others are just like, it's its own thing. I don't know, but we're gonna play it. Uh, it's a great trilogy. I loved Metroid Prime. Um, but we're also gonna play the 2D, Metroid 2, Return to Samus. Um, Super Metroid. Sorry for a second there, my brain just absolutely blanked on what the third one was, and it's like, oh yeah, Super Nintendo. Uh, and then Metroid Fusion, and we're gonna cap all this off with Metroid Dread, the latest addition to the franchise. I'm hoping we get through all of the games quickly, so that we can get to Dread. I've been playing it off stream. I absolutely love it. It is challenging. I die a lot, and I don't imagine I'm gonna get much better. But um, it's a fun game. I love it. Uh, Tuesdays are I'm doing this new podcast. Murph Strange presents a Bloody Strange podcast with my friend Zeph, who is just a blast to chat with. Um, she has an interest in a lot of the weird, uh, true crime sort of stuff. I'm a former ghost hunter, and together we we're gonna go delve into some rabbit holes around the internet about the weird and mysterious stuff and the strange things human beings believe in. So, join us for that. That's every Tuesday. Again, Murph Strange presents a Bloody Strange podcast. Wednesdays, more Python code for now. Once we're finished with our app here and start getting into game development, at some point, I will be doing a JavaScript tutorial. However, that will also incorporate some HTML, some CSS. Don't worry. I have been such an old hat at that stuff. I can get you up to speed and teach you everything you need to know about HTML and CSS and how to get JavaScript to work with your web pages. Uh, it's it's not that hard. A lot of people like to make it harder than it has to be, and I learned from those people. I beat my head against the wall on this whole coding thing for years and years and years and years, and I've had numerous aha moments that where things would finally click as to what it was I wasn't getting, and you know there was the main JavaScript aha moment back in high school. There was the object oriented aha moment that surprisingly wasn't even really all that long ago. I think that was like maybe a decade and a half ago that I finally figured out the object oriented programming. I think. I don't remember how long ago that was, but it took a little while to get there. But I was also trying to learn this stuff from people who made it more complicated than it needed to be. You know, the way they described things, you know, the way they introduced new concepts, they buried the lead so badly. You would get bogged down in all this minuscule stuff you're hardly ever going to run into on the off chance that it was something you wanted to do. You wanted to work with these things. But most of the code that I've actually written myself, most of the code that I've run into other people writing, it's hardly ever the kind of stuff that gets addressed in tutorials. Tutorials are written for the interview that you're going to have with Google and Facebook or whatever company is hiring all the programmers now. And that's wrong. Don't teach for the test. Teach the skill. And that's what I'm trying to showcase here. The skill. Not the answers to the test. Not the whole, oh, I need to figure out how to make a search algorithm that can sort stuff by blah de blah de blah de blah. Is this something you're going to actually need in your life? Probably not, because most search functions have already been written. You're going to be able to look those up and, you know, use work that's been written by other people to solve those problems. Which is completely fine. Most programmers, that's what they're doing anyway. Go to Stack Overflow. You know? You will find just tons of code. And the only thing you need in order to be able to use the code that you find there is just modify it to fit your needs. You know, change the variable names to fit what you need them to do in your code. I mean, you're only going to be able to do that if you understand how to write the code in the first place. But, like, I don't feel like everybody needs to become a programmer, but everybody should understand this stuff. Because it's not that hard. I mean, you don't have to understand everything about it, but you should understand what a function is. You should understand what a conditional is, and a control statement that, you know, can make your program loop through the same thing over and over again. That's like the ultimate power of computers. They do very simple tasks very fast, and they can do them a lot without getting bored. You know? They can do the same thing. A thing that would take you probably, you know, even just a few minutes, but if you had to do it 1,000 times, would become mind-numbingly dull and repetitive and drive you absolutely insane. Make a computer do it. You know? That's what they're there for. And they'll do it faster than you. And that's fine, because you didn't want to have to do that anyway by yourself. You know, you didn't want to have to go through 1,000 records and, you know, make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. No. Tell your computer to do it. It'll take it 5 seconds, and it'll be totally happy that it could help you out. Like, that's the kind of power I am trying to instill in my audience with these code streams. I don't need to turn you into a, you know, the next Google lead developer for whatever. If that's what you're aiming for, like, this might be a good place to start, but there's plenty of more in-depth boot camps and stuff that'll go over all that minuscule detail that I'm skipping over. That'll show you the stuff you're missing that I'm not covering. And if that's your aim, by all means, good on you. you know? There was a time that would have interested me. Being a developer for like Google or Facebook or, you know, Apple even. Like one of the big tech firms that hires up everybody. Everybody with you know, demonstrable skill anyway. Or, you know, freelance web development. You know, would love to do that. Even now, I still work on websites. I have two of my own. One of them's being very much neglected. But I've bought like lifetime hosting, so I'm not in any hurry. It's gonna be my, you know, if you need a magician, you know, contact me here. You know, here's the promo reel to give you a taste of what it is I can do at your parties and stuff like that. Uh, you know, that's where all that's gonna be hosted. And when I'm ready, I'll get that put together. It won't take me much time at all. But then there's also my blog, which, you know, there's a link to in the credits after all of this. You'll be able to go there and read my random rants about weird stuff. Just any old thing that pops into my head that I feel like talking about, but just don't have a place to talk about it. I write up a blog post and I put it there. Sometimes that stuff is weird, sometimes the stuff is just like addressing something that you know, that has been brought to my attention recently, or, you know, sometimes I'm just talking about a new video game, you know? I don't write terribly often there. I gotta remember to write more often there. I'm hoping as the podcast and the coding and the various video gaming endeavors here start to progress, I'll have more to say over there. Um, Also have a Discord. You know, feel free to join that. Link will be in the credits at the end of this video, this session. Over the on the Discord, we are open to hearing about your own weird tales. We even have a text channel for posting scary stories and strange stuff. You know, if it's something you'd like to hear us talk about on the Bloody Strange podcast, share your story. We'll be happy to talk about it. We'll be happy to give you our thoughts, share some of our own experiences. I'd love to hear from someone who's encountered Bigfoot or aliens. Have you seen a UFO? Tell me about it. Hop over to the Discord. Type up your tale in the chat there. I'll be happy to read it. I mean, I might not be a believer in the same sense that a lot of people like to believe in that sort of stuff, but I'll still listen to your story. Won't judge you. Yeah, if you have any questions on Python, I mean, feel free. We have a chat for that, for programming questions and stuff there as well. But those are also welcome here in the chat. However, I'm not going to drop what I'm doing to help you build whatever program it is you're trying to write. So if you're going to come into the chat and ask me, you know, to help you with a program that you're trying to create, have a specific question about what it is you're stuck on. Okay? Don't just be like, I'm trying to build a Facebook web page. Can you help me? No. No, I can't. Because I don't know what it is exactly you need help with. Have a specific ask. You know? Like, I'm not going to help you build your whole project. All right? I've got my own things going on. I'm just saying. But I am happy to answer questions. Very happy to. But I'm not going to walk you through your entire project. That's not going to happen. I have my own projects, and they take up plenty of my time. Um, I'm not looking to take on new projects. I'm not looking to collaborate with anybody on anything new. If somebody wants me to hop in a game with them for a session or something, that's fine. Over on the Discord, I even have a channel for sharing like gamer tags and friend codes and stuff. Definitely happy to join you for a game if it's one that I play or have in my library. I play on pretty much all the systems. Um, I don't have all the games though, but if it's a game I own and or possibly one that's super cheap or on sale and I can pick it up real quick, I'm happy to. I'm happy to hop in. Um, but yeah, so feel free to join us again next time. We'll finish. Well, I don't know if we'll fully finish off this project, but we'll make some more progress. Just got a few different parts to figure out. Nothing major, but we're getting there. We're getting closer to done. And once we're done with this, we're gonna do a little sockets. It's network programming. We're gonna figure out how to take the information that we're gathering with this app and send it across the network. So, yeah, you're gonna make your computers talk to each other. How fun will that be? Pretty fun actually. Till then, y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching.